Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this video I will talk to you about Embark and the extensions that I have written for it. The idea is to demonstrate the main features of Embark, to do a full demo of what Embark is all about, and then to show you what I have added on top of it. These extensions that I have also provide an answer to some of the questions that I received pertaining to my last video, my previous video, which was about my current completion framework for Emacs. A framework that consists of standalone modules, of packages that I piece together into a coherent system. So you can watch that video if you want to have an overview, and this video if you want to understand more about Embark. So what I have here is a presentation that I have prepared. This is a standard org mode buffer, and I will toggle my presentation mode as it were, and off we go. As usual, I will be talking, and where relevant, I will also be showcasing what I am referring to at the moment. So first, an overview of what Embark is about, and this is we start off with something abstract, and then we will deconstruct it and make sense of it in concrete terms. So Embark provides a unified framework of regular Emacs key maps. So these are standard key maps, nothing fancy about them. Embark just puts some order to them and makes use of them in a smart way. So regular Emacs key maps, which let you carry out contextually relevant actions on targets through a common point of entry, which typically is a prefix key, though not always. Let's unpack this terse, this dense definition, so that we can understand what the thing is about, what is Embark all about. Actions are standard Emacs commands, the kind of command that you can call from Emacs, and then a name, and that is a command. Or you can call some command from a key binding. What matters is that that command can read an argument from the mini buffer. So this is an action that Embark can carry out. Targets are semantically sensitive constructs, so things that Embark can somehow classify as belonging to a specific category. So Embark can understand, for example, the URL at point, a link to a website, a file name, the active region, the symbol at point, the current candidate in the completion, the mini buffer completion, or the entire list of candidates in the mini buffer, and it can classify them accordingly, so then it can perform relevant actions. So this takes us to our third bullet point, which is that contextually relevant actions are stored, are defined in those key maps that I alluded to, standard key maps, and each of those key maps is delimited, is specific to a given target, so it delimits a certain scope of application. So for example, when you call Embark over a file name, it will activate the Embark file map, and in doing so, it will grant you access to all the key and command associations that are included in that key map. Same principle if the target is a region, so Embark region map, Embark buffer map for buffers, and so on. There are a lot of key maps, and you can always define your own key maps on top of those. And because these are standard key maps, you can of course override each of their definitions. So each association of key and command, you can write whatever you want. You can bind whatever key code you wish. And the point of entry, how you gain access to this action and target tandem, is the Embark command that you will be using, which is Embark Act no exit, or Embark become. Embark become is something that I will demonstrate and talk about a bit later in the video. The difference between Embark Act and Embark Act no exit is already in the name, you can tell. The first one, Embark Act, will perform the action and exit the context you are in, whereas the other one will perform the action and remain in the context you are in, so you can continue acting in that context. Let's do a quick demo here. I have a region over here, an active region, so this becomes my target for when I call Embark. So let's do now Embark Act. I have a key binding for that. Of course, you want to bind this to some convenient key combination so that you can access it very quickly. I have, you can see over here in the mini buffer, control and comma, and I am calling Embark Act. We can see below the mini buffer over here, with the help of the which key package, all the commands, the key bindings and commands that I can use on the specific target, so on the active region. And we can, you can read them, of course, at your own, but let me use, for example, this one, comment or uncomment region. So I just hit the semicolon sign, and it comments out the region, so it acts on the target. Let's do this again, and let me do it very quickly, and I am uncommenting the region that was commented out earlier. So this is a very simple case. Let's come to this symbol over here. You can see it, I have it highlighted. I am on this line and I am highlighting this. Let's call Embark Act. And now I have something that I defined. This is an association that I defined. So if I hit the letter K, it will describe the key map. I know this is a key map, so I can see there is a help buffer over here, and this one describes the key map that I was targeting, and I can already see all the key and command associations that are defined in this key map. So again, as I said, those key maps are standard key maps, nothing special about them, nothing Embark specific about them. So the way you define or override those associations is the way you do with all Emacs key bindings. So standard stuff. What I just showed now with the region and with the symbol are actions on a per item basis. So you are targeting something on its own. But you can always target sets of targets. And I will show this as we proceed to the presentation, and we will explain it better when we are here. Here I will show you, I will talk about completion candidates. So in this case, a set of targets that Embark can act on. And I will explain first how we can gather a collection, and then how we can act on that collection as a whole. So let's do Control XB to switch buffers. Let's type something in. So you can see that I am trying to switch buffers. I have typed something in, and I have a list of completion candidates for my current context. Of course, this is a completion context, a mini buffer centric action. And what I want to do is I want to call Embark Act and produce a snapshot of what I just did. So I will hit the capital S key, Embark collect snapshot. And you can see that I produced a buffer that holds all the targets, the set of targets that was relevant in the context I was in. So you can see how Embark can take a target, understand the set it belongs to, and act on the set. So it does so here. And of course, if I come in here and hit the return key, it will perform the default action on that target, which in this case is to complete against it, and therefore to switch to that buffer over here. So that's very effective. What I just did with the snapshot is a manual operation. So I called Embark act, followed it up with the capital S key to produce a snapshot, and then worked on the resulting buffer, on the collection. Of course, this is not the only conduit to operating on targets, completion candidates. You can do so via a hook. So this is what I am doing. When I try to switch to buffers, you saw already that a buffer pops up automatically showing me the completion candidates. You can see that this is the Embark completions buffer. Again, this is a collection, but this one is not something that I called manually. It happens automatically via a hook, specifically the mini buffer setup hook. So I am telling Embark, look, when I am using the mini buffer, which is, by the way, the default mini buffer, in case you didn't watch my previous video, when I am using the mini buffer, start reading the targets, so the completion candidates, and already start putting those targets in a buffer. And this buffer, Embark has this notion of the live updating buffer. So this buffer is live updating. So if I continue to type, it will update to match my current input, and in doing so, it will recalculate the set of targets for the relevant Embark actions. And of course, again, even though this is a live updating buffer, it has no real difference when it is compared to the snapshot buffer that I showed earlier. You can perform the same actions from here as well. So for example, if you go there and hit the return key or click on an item, it will carry out the default action, which in this case is that of switching buffers. Let's now see how we can use this as our completion framework. So this is something that I got asked, I received a lot of questions about, which was basically along those lines. When you have already typed something and have narrowed the set of targets to a handful of items, how do you go about that extra step, that final step? How do you finalize this process? For example, when I have a case like this, you see it, you see that this one is a subset of everything that exists over here. So if I were to type, for example, I would still be matching both items. So how can I go to the smaller of the two, to the shortest of the two? You can see that it can get a bit tricky. So the question was, how do you do this? When you have a few items, how do you use the default mini buffer and Embark's notion of live updating collections, in this case of completion candidates? And the answer is you write some small extensions of your own if you want to use this workflow, and this is exactly what I did. So let me show you my cycling behavior from the mini buffer to the completions and back to the mini buffer. The idea to think of this is if you are at the bottom and you try to go further down, it takes you back to the top. If you are at the top and you try to go further up, it goes back to the bottom, so it's a circle. So think of it that way. So I am right now in the mini buffer, you can see it over here, and if I hit Control N to try to go down, it will take me to the topmost target in the completions buffer. Then Control N or Control P will perform the regular motion up and down. And if I am at the end and try to go down, it will go from the completions buffer to the mini buffer. Let's do Control P now. You can see I am going upward, and there we go downward, and you can see how I am cycling from the mini buffer to the completions, and then when I feel like it, I can just hit the return key and perform the default action on the given target. So I hope this answers all your questions with regard to this. Simple, super effective. Let's proceed. Performing the default action while cycling, so what I just showcased. So the idea is, I think I already have the snapshot, maybe I didn't kill it, but I'm not sure. Let's see, do we have it? So you see already I have two collect over here, so let's do this. So the idea is that you produce a snapshot. So you act on a set of Embark targets, and then you want to do something on them. Actually, this is not a good example, so let's kill that buffer actually, and let's produce another snapshot which is better for our demo purposes. Of course, that one would have worked as well. So let me show you what I have written here. Describe keymap and then search for Embark. So what we have over here, let's produce a snapshot from this context that we were in. You see, we have exited the mini buffer. This is a regular buffer. We can revisit it. We can write it to a file. We can edit it so that we remove some items as well. We can do whatever we want. It is a standard buffer, and that is great. So in this buffer, if you hit the return key, it performs the default action, which in this case is to produce a help buffer for the keymap you are on. So for example, you see I get a help buffer for the symbols map, the Embark symbol map. What I want to do is, instead of doing Control N, Control P, and then ret, I want to combine these into a single motion, into a single command. So Control Meta N will, and Control Meta P will move up or down and also perform the default action. So Control Meta N takes me one line down and produces the default action, runs the default action, which produces a help buffer. Let's do it in the opposite direction. You can see it already. It also accepts a numeric argument, the way you do with lines. So I can go 5 lines down, and you can see it, 5 lines up. You see how it works. So this is very simple. So I can move normally, and when I want, I can produce a preview, rather run the default action for the next or preceding line. I also have the concept of showing me the line at point, though it is not relevant here. And we will see this in a second. Just to say that this idea that I just showcased is something that I got from Ivy. Of course, Embark itself is not an innovation in the sense that the ideas it implements are brand new. These ideas have already existed in the Emacs milieu. Embark just does things differently in a more default Emacs friendly kind of way. It is aligned with the standard API. But anyhow, this thing I just showcased is something that Ivy can do as well, and unless I am mistaken, it also uses the exact same key bindings, Control Meta N, Control Meta, and P. So let's see this in action, how we can expand on this basic principle. And what I will show you now is some consult commands. Consult is another main package in my completion framework for Emacs. It's another integral part of my system, and what I want to show you now is how we can use it to produce manual previews for matching targets. So let's switch to another buffer over here, and what we want to do is we want to search for something on a given line. So this is the consult line command. I have a thin wrapper around it, but no worries, it doesn't matter what actually that wrapper is about. The principle is the same. So we have consult line. I have searched for the word map, and of course I can cycle through those. If you are using iComplete or Selectrum and you are performing this cycling operation in the mini buffer, so in iComplete or Selectrum, iComplete vertical by the way, Consult will let you preview the target automatically, and that is configurable as well, but it will let you preview the target. Whereas when you are using the default mini buffer, you cannot preview the targets, and because Embark's collections are not a mini buffer, again we have this constraint where we cannot preview the item. For me, previewing automatically is not something I want to do. I want it to be manual, so of course I can do exactly what I just mentioned, which is Control Meta N, Control Meta P, to move to the given line and preview that line. Let's come over here 1 second and enable line numbers so that you can see it in action. Let's say that I am on line 70 and I want to preview line 71. So I move one down, and 71, you can see at the buffer at the top is already highlighted, and of course the buffer, the line before, and things of that nature. You can see how it works. I also have this command, Control Meta and J, to preview the current item. So you can see that I previewed line 57. The way this works in the background is by using Embark Act No Exit, but I won't bother you with the technicalities, the implementation details. It doesn't really matter. You can check my code. I will provide relevant links. What matters is to have a sense of how everything is pieced together, how this system works. So of course, when you are ready, you can just hit the return key and perform the default action, which in this case is to go to the line that has the thing that you searched for. Let's close line numbers now, and let's come back here. So very simple, we get essentially previews for consult commands for free just by having this motion of move and act that I already mentioned, that I already demonstrated. And as I said, consult can already display previews by default if you are using iComplete Vertical, iComplete, or Selectrum. But because I am using the default mini buffer, and because I don't want previews automatically, this is, for me, for my specific use case, better, what I have over here. But as I said, consult can be configured on a per command basis on whether to show previews or not, and whether to have a specific key for performing manual previews. So of course it gives you the flexibility, even if you don't use Embark, even if you are using Selectrum or whatever instead of the default mini buffer. This was just a case in point for my particular system. So let's move on, and now let's talk about Embark Become. So Embark Become, very generally, is a convenience, if you want, where it will let you take what you have already typed in the mini buffer and reuse it in a different command. So a common case for that is, for example, you type Control X, Control F, so to search for files, and you type something in, and then you realize, oh no, what I just typed in matches nothing in this context. I wasn't thinking about files, I was actually thinking about buffers. So one way to do this is to do Control G to close this, and then to search for buffers and retype what you had already typed in. A more efficient way is to call Embark Become. So you will bind this to some convenient key. I have, you can see over here, Control and the greater than sign. And now we want our find file command with the input we have already specified to become a switch to buffer command. So you just do that, and what do we have here? You can see already that we have here, and we can just select the buffer and move to that buffer and continue on with our work. You can see nothing fancy about it. It's just a convenience for you to go from one context to the other without having to retype everything and potentially frustrate yourself. This is very simple in its principle, and then of course it builds on the design philosophy of Embark, which is centered around the concept of key maps. So what we can do to leverage this Embark Become facility is either of two things. Either extend the key maps that are already built in, so the default key maps of Embark Become, or write our own key maps, and then inside those key maps specify our own key and command associations. So this is what I have done. Actually, I have done both. And I want to show you some examples over here. Let's switch to the other tab / workspace. that I have. And let's, by the way, the tabs and workspaces, in case you don't know, this is the tab bar that comes with Emacs 27 or higher, and I have been using this for 6 months or so, maybe more, as my workspace separator, as my workspace manager. You can see it. So each tab acts as a workspace with its own persistent layout. And I actually don't use the tab bar. I just have it mostly for demo purposes. But anyhow, you can find this in my prottab.el library. So what I want to show you here is how we can go from one command to the other, and how we can do so with commands that we have defined ourselves. So I have this command that will rip grep. It will search the contents of files in the current directory or the current version controlled project. So now I am in my .files directory, so this is a project. It is version controlled by the Git program. So let's say that I am now searching for consult, consult, and I have lots of grep results over here, but I just realized that what I was actually looking for is file names and not file contents. So of course I can delete this and start again, or I can use Embark become, and I invoke Embark become and then hit a key, and now I have the new context, which is for fd find in this project, and you can see that I only have one match, and of course I can, as always, perform the default action here and visit that file. I don't want to do that. It doesn't really matter. The point is for you to see that I go from one to the other, and of course it works both ways. Okay, so it's not one way. So you can see that I am searching for a find, and now I want to search for grep. You can see how that works, and you can flip, you can go back and forth. It doesn't really matter. So let's close this. Let's show another example, again with some consult commands. Of course, as I said, it's always whatever command you want, whatever key binding you want. So I have, there is this consult outline command. So I have a key over here. Let's say that I am searching for the outline, so the headings, so to speak, for the word map. And I have some candidates over here, but now that I am looking at this collection, I realize that actually this is not what I want. Actually, I want to search all lines that contain the word map. So again, Embark become, and if I switch from consult outline to consult line, you can see the command over here. I switch to consult line, and you can see already the collection is much broader over here. By the way, you can see that it is matching things flexibly, and that's a feature. I actually want that, but don't worry. The idea is that we were able to go from one place to the other without losing our mini buffer input. And of course, performing the default action takes you to that place. And of course, you have the same that I showcased earlier, control meta n, control meta p, and also the cyclic behavior of the candidates and all that. Everything applies. Okay, so it's prevalent everywhere. So that's the idea with Embark become, and I think I have covered everything, folks. Yes. That's it. So this is Embark in general. This is an overview of what Embark can do for you. So you can see it can do a lot of things. So even though it is simple, so again, think about this definition that I have over here, or description. Definition is a very strong word, but description. Think about this description and think how we can unpack this and do all those wonderful things, and think about the implications and how these ramify into all corners of our Emacs space over here, and that is very wonderful, exactly, because even though it is simple, it exactly can adapt to all sorts of evolving circumstances and demands. And this is what I really like about it. And this is what I really like about modular systems in general. You can piece them together however you want. If your needs change, you don't have to throw out the whole system. You just add or remove a component and you are good to go. No need to work with monolith-like frameworks. Anyhow, I will provide a link. If you are watching this on the video hosting platform, I will provide a link to my website. Below that video on my website, I will include this file in its totality, so you can just read this if you want. And of course, there will be links to my .emacs and links to the packages that I just discussed over here, so Embark and Consult. Basically you can check my .emacs for how I have implemented all of this. I don't want to just show you the code, because the problem with videos is that they are a snapshot in time. So it's sort of a specific moment in time where my code is in a specific state. But for example, I might finish recording this and then go and edit the code that I was just showing you. So I don't really need to show you the code and then have that code be rendered obsolete 1 minute later. It's better for you to just check my .emacs and find what I have over there. Finally, just to say this, a couple of things actually. There was a major renaming in the Embark repo that happened a couple of days ago, I think. And this was right after I had produced my last video. So in my last video, I was using terminology such as Embark Occur, and that thing no longer exists. Now we are talking about collections, Embark Collect, and so on. As I said in that previous video as well, these are fairly new packages. There still are areas that are being refined and reworked, so things may be in a state of flux. So don't focus too much on the minutiae. Try to keep a sense of perspective of what the bigger picture is. That's the one thing. And the last thing is that someone posted my last video on Reddit, which is perfectly fine, but please note that I cannot follow my content across the internet, so I don't know if it is being posted on Reddit or some other platform, and therefore if you ask some question there, chances are that I will never read it and you will not get an answer. The way to get an answer from me is always, the most reliable way, is always to send me an email. There is a contact page on my website, so you can find my email there. Optionally, you can encrypt it with GPG. You don't have to, but optionally. And that's the best way to get a hang of me. I also reply to comments on the video hosting platform, but other than that, I cannot guarantee that I will reply to you on Reddit or some other website. So that's all for now, folks. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye for now. Take care.